After knowing the essentials of contract of payment, now we'll proceed with the next topic, that is the bailor's duty. Section 150 of Indian Contract Act gives us the bailor's duty. So what do you think is the bailor's duty? Bailor's duty is quite simple. He has to disclose the facts which he is aware of. That's all. Whenever he is giving some goods to other person, that is bailing, the bailor has to disclose the facts. In case if there is any fault in that particular good, if there is any damage in that particular good, then it becomes his responsibility to disclose. Don't you think so? It is ethically correct that he has to disclose that whatever, if there is any default or if there is any problem with the good, then it is his duty, it becomes his duty to disclose it. Now let us know under which section. I told you it is under section 150 of your Indian Contract Act. It gives the bailor duty in respect of goods bailed by him. So it tells us what is his duty. There under section 150, you have two paragraphs there giving the definition, like how is his duty. The first paragraph goes like this. It says that the bailor is bound to disclose. He is bound to disclose all the faults, if any he finds. If there is any faults in the goods which he is going to give on a bailment, he has to disclose those facts. Point number one. Next point, he says that if the defects, which if it materially interferes and it causes any damage, then it has to be disclosed. And if it poses as an extraordinary risk for the bailee, then it is the duty of the bailor to disclose all the facts which he is aware of. If there is any loss or damage caused to the bailee, then he becomes liable. So I'll just repeat the points what he is bound to disclose. He is bound to disclose if he finds any fault in the goods. First point. Second, if it materially interferes, then he has to disclose it. Second. Third one, if it poses as an extraordinary risk for the bailee, then it is his duty to disclose. Got it? If at all he does not disclose, he becomes liable for the loss or damage caused to the bailee. I think the paragraph, it is there in two paragraphs. The paragraph one is clear. Now coming to the second paragraph. What it says, if the goods are hired for hire, if the goods are hired if the goods are bailed for hire. What I mean to say, on a hire is on some installments or something. For if it is pledged, then you are for a loan, that is called hire. So if it is given on a hire, and if there is any damage, even without the bailie's knowledge, or if he has got a knowledge, still he will be responsible for that. Got it? It is very clear that the second point says that if the goods are bailed for hire, even if the bailor is knowing about the fault, or if he is not aware of the fault, still he will be liable for it. So these are the two things which are dealt in section 150. From this section, we get to know that there can be two types of bailment which can exist. What are those? Gratuitous bailment and bailment for reward. You can even see it as types of bailment, that is gratuitous bailment and bailment for reward, or else you can say it can be a types of bailor also. How it is types of bailor? Gratuitous bailor, and second one is bailor for reward. Got it? Just remember one types of bailment. One is a gratuitous one and bailment for reward. So what do you mean by gratuitous? Gratuitous, in simple meaning, it says that there is no money and all involved. It is for some charity, or you can say it is for some helping without money. Usually you say as gratuitous. So here in our contract of bailment, gratuitous means no charges or no consideration. So where there is contract of bailment without any charges or consideration, it is said to be gratuitous bailment. Got it? And the bailer is called as gratuitous bailer. That is, he is giving it for without consideration. He is not earning any profit. So when you talk about his liability seemed to be bit less than compared to the other one. That is for reward. When he is taking some charges or consideration, his his liability is more because he has to exercise certain reasonable care. Whereas for gratuitous, it is comparative less, but still he will be liable in case if he is aware of it. So next we'll just go to an example and we'll try to analyze all these things. Now suppose my friend has given me a cycle or a horse to travel. And if he knows that the cycle is without brakes or there is some damage in, the horse is not efficient to, ride, then it is his duty to tell me that yes, my cycle has no brakes and in case of horse, that it is not efficient to ride. Got it? I think you are clear by the illustration. If he is aware, he has to say it. He has to disclose it. There are two important conditions which are to be noted when that for what these conditions are there to know when exactly the liability of the bailer arises. So it arises when the bailer has got a knowledge about it. Right? Bailer should have a knowledge about it, and in case bailiff is not aware is fine, because usually see bailiff won't be knowing what is there, what is not there. It is the goods are with the bailer. So when he is transferring it to the bailiff, he should disclose the fact. See, this is not there in my good. This particular defect is there. It is his responsibility to tell him. That is why the first condition is the knowledge. If the bailer is having a knowledge and if the bailiff is not aware of it, then his liability arises. Second one, if there is any fault or if it materially interferes and also it is a risk, it causes an extraordinary risk to the bailiff, then again his liability arises. So it was there in the definition where we discussed section 150 itself. So these are the points which you need to be more clear. Give an example illustration of a cycle or a horse, and you can also give an example of any other things also. Suppose if the A gives his goods, A gives his horse to B. A knows that the horse is vicious. There is some problem with the horse, but still he gives it to B. Now what happens? Who is liable for this? B is injured now. Who is liable? Yes, it is A, because he was aware of the fact, right? I'll give you one more illustration. Again, A gives his carriage to B. A knows that the carriage is not safe. If there is any rainfall, since it's a rainy season, if there is a rainfall, the roof can leak and it can cause damage there. In spite of that, he'll give his place. Now who is liable if anything wrong happens? Yes, it is A. The bailer is liable for this. Got it? Quite simple. So remember this illustration. Very simple illustration. You can remember even of a cycle without brakes and horse is not efficient. A person giving his carriage. Simple examples. Now let's proceed further. Remember the conditions also. When does the liability arises? It is on two conditions. Bailer has a knowledge, bailiff is not aware. Liability arises. Second point, when there is a fault and if there is if the fault is materially interfering, and the third one is if it poses an extraordinary risk to the bailiff, then also the bailer is liable. Two important conditions which is there in the definition itself. Got it? Okay, we'll proceed to the next thing. For reward. Bailment for reward or bailer for reward. bailment for reward. We'll take it this way. From the very word reward, what do you understand? Yes, there is some consideration. There are charges. So when this item of consideration is involved, the bailor's liability increases. Since he is not doing it gratuitously, he is not doing anything free of cost. He is charging for whatever he is bailed. So now it is his duty, it is his responsibility to be more clear about the goods. We'll take an example for this. A has given his horse to B. He says that you keep, B asks for an horse and he says, okay, fine, you take this. For that 1 month, he says you pay certain amount. Now, since the consideration is there, and if the horse is not efficient, then who will be liable? The bailor will be liable. So, it is bailor's duty to be more clear. He should say, if there is any default, if there is any defect, if there is any damage, it is his duty to tell it to the bailee. On the examination, preliminary examination only, if he finds that there is any problem with a particular good, then it is his duty to inform the bailee the defects. It should be informed. So that is why the liability is more in case of this reward. Got it? Clear? So types are gratuitous and for reward. For gratuitous, no charge or consideration. For reward, there is a consideration. And the duty for bailor for reward, do remember, it increases. He has more liability. He has to disclose all the material facts which he is knowing. Got it? Fine. Now we have a case law for this. Hyman and wife versus Nye and Sons. What happens in this case? The case facts are very simple. The plaintiff hired a carriage, a horse, and the driver for traveling from his friend, from defendant. While traveling, what happens? The screw, the bolt in the carriage is broken, and the splinter bar is also, it has come out. Thereby, the carriage is upset, and there were the people in the carriage are injured. Plaintiff is injured now. They are injured. Now, who do you think is liable for this? Don't you think it is that the defendant should have told them that yes, there is some problem in my carriage that is loosed, the whatever is there, it is not proper. So it is his duty to fit it properly, and he has to deliver it to the plaintiff, right? So it was his duty which he has failed in doing it. He has to take a reasonable care whenever he is giving some goods on bailment. So this is what is told in our bailor's duty under section 150. And again, if the carriage is given for some other purpose, and if the carriage turns out to be unsafe also, again the bailor would also be liable. I told you in the example itself, coming to the carriage also, a place, if it is not safe, the bailor has a duty to disclose it. So the bailee, if any loss is incurred by him, the bailor has to compensate. I hope these points are clear. I'll just revise it. What are the bailor's duty? The bailor has a duty to disclose. It is given under section 150 of Indian Contract Act. What is this duties? That is given in 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph says that the bailor has a duty to disclose. He is bound to disclose any faults in the goods. First, if it materially interferes with the goods, it is his duty to disclose it. Third one, again, it says that if it is an extraordinary risk for the bailee, then it is his responsibility to disclose, and in case of loss, the bailor becomes liable. Next point, if the goods are given on hire, If the goods are given on hire, then even if the baler is aware or not aware, he becomes liable. Given examples immediately of that horse. The horse is vicious, if the horse is not efficient for riding, so who becomes liable? Baler becomes liable. The next example you can give is of a carriage. The carriage is not safe. A, knowing that he gives it to the B, so again baler becomes liable. Then go to this. From section 150 we get to know that there are types. First one is gratuitous and for reward. Gratuitous means no charge or consideration. So it is comparatively the liability is less, but still he will be responsible if he is knowing the fact. For reward, consideration is there, and the duty of the baler is more in case of this, in case of reward. Got it? So all the defects have to be disclosed, which materially interferes also should be disclosed, and which poses named extraordinary risk also has to be disclosed. Remember the two important conditions which has to be disclosed to the baler, disclosed to the bailee, and also when does the liability of the baler arises is the two very important points are when the baler is knowing that there is some fault but the bailee is not knowing, liability arises. Condition number 1. Second one is if there is any fault in the goods, or second point, if there materially interferes, or third point, what is it? If it is an extraordinary risk to the bailee, the responsibility of the baler arises. Got it? In this case, it's very simple. The plaintiffs take a carriage, horses and a driver for traveling somewhere. In between, the bolts are being loosened and the splinter bar is it comes out. So thereby the plaintiff injured. Thereby it was a defendant's duty to take reasonable care, which he has not exercised. Therefore they become liable. Got it? After knowing the bailiff's duty, now let's know what is the bailee's duty. The bailee's duty, they are divided into 6. So it is from section 151 to it goes on till 163, and also further sometimes you have some sections to be picked up from other things also. So other sections also. So now let's know what are the duties of bailee. What do you think might be the duties of bailee? Very basic things. It is not that complicated. The first one is duty to take reasonable care. What is it reasonable care? He has to take adequate care. See, on whatever the care is needed, just take so much. No, you need not take more or less. Just take whatever reasonable. That is, see, if there are certain goods which have to be kept in a very place where it is free from moisture. There are some goods to be kept like that. So provide a room like that and keep it safely. That's all. So you have to take a reasonable care. That is given from section 151 and 152. You have case laws for this, which are very interesting. We'll be dealing with it. First, let us know what are the duties. The next second duty is duty not to make unauthorized use. True. You should not make unauthorized use. You are not the owner of that goods. Remember, under bailment, it is not the transfer of ownership, it is always the transfer of possession. So you are only giving the possession for temporary purpose. The temporary purpose, I told you when we are discussing the basics, that it is only for temporary purpose. So remember, it is only for temporary purpose. You have been given the in charge of that particular good. So don't make an unauthorized use. Do as per whatever the direction of the bailer. We read this in the definition also. Whatever he asks us to do it in that way. Or for whatever purpose you have taken it on bailment, please do it that way. Don't make an unauthorized use. Next, not to mix bailer's goods with his own goods. What does this say? Very simple. It says that don't mix your goods. Suppose even you are having the same goods. For example, take an example that your friend. We'll take an example of A and B. Very simple. A has got, he is selling some rice flour. So he does not have his, he is repairing his godown. So he goes to his friend's godown and he says, my dear friend, B. Please keep this goods, that is rice flour, with you for some days, for month. There is repairs going on in my godown. Please keep this with you. He has a godown, so he can keep it. He can take a reasonable care. But his duty is he should not mix it with his. If that friend A's quality of rice flour is superior quality and his is of some not that superior, okay quality, medium quality, he should not mix that. It is his duty that he should not mix it with his own goods. Got it? That's given under section 155 to 157. Coming to the next point. To return the goods on fulfillment of the purpose. This is given in your definition itself. The condition is to return the goods once the purpose is fulfilled. So once the repairs in the garage are over, we'll go back to the example. Once the repair in the garage is over, the friend, that is B, has to return to A on his request to him. Got it? Next one is give the increase or profit on goods paid. So what it says here is give whatever in case if there is any profit incurred or if there is any increase, then give it to the baler. The bailee has to give it to the baler. How? We'll see. We'll go in detail so that we'll get to know how it actually takes place. It is also very interesting and these are very simple. Now let us know one by one what are the duties of baler in detail. This is a very important question for you which may come in your exam. So now we'll go in detail. The first duty of the bailee is the duty to take reasonable care of goods paid. That's given in the section 151 and 152 of Indian Contract Act. By the term reasonable care, you would have understand what care he has to do. But your section 151 gives it more specifically. It says that he has to take a care that a man of ordinary prudence would take in the similar circumstances of his goods of same value, quantity and also other packages. So what it says, this was a simple definition, whatever is given in your section 151. It says that the bailee, it becomes a duty once he receives the good from the baler that he has to take the same care as a man of ordinary prudence. Now whatever ordinary prudence a rational man would take some care, right? Such care should be exercised. That's all. Then, the continuation is under similar circumstances, if there is any danger to that particular goods, then he should exercise such due care as he is exercising for his own goods under similar circumstances, for that particular bulk, for that particular value and for that particular quantity. So he has to exercise the same care. So overall your section 151 says what sort of care should be exercised by the bailee so that it forms a reasonable care. It is very simple. Whenever you get this question, remember, just write it down. Man of ordinary prudence under similar circumstances of his own goods of same bulk, same quantity and same value. Simple. Got it? Now let's proceed. We have certain points under this. Let's know under what circumstances or cases. We'll just go to the cases. We'll get to know how bailee becomes liable. The first condition, bailee should act as a prudent man. Before that, I'll say you, there are two more points which I missed out. I'll just say you, there should be a standard care exercise, number one, from the definition you are inferring. And also if it is a gratuitous or it is a bailment for reward, if he doesn't take, if the bailee doesn't take a proper care for that, if he doesn't exercise that reasonable care, then he becomes liable. Even though he is aware, and if he does not exercise the that care, he becomes liable even in case of gratuitous bailment and bailment for reward. Got it? So now we'll proceed. Bailey should act as a prudent man. For understanding this in a better way, let's go to the case law. Union of India versus Udhoram and Sons. You can just remember this as railway stolen case. I do use this points, even you can remember, because you have plenty of cases now coming across. So in order to remember, just have some code words so you can remember it easily. So what happens in this case? Certain goods were consigned by Mrs. Radhe Ram Sohanla from Calcutta to Delhi. The destination is from Calcutta to Delhi. That is by railways. The receipt which was given in the favor of stating that this would go to this particular person, please deliver it to this person. You have a receipt, right? Even the courier receipts, everything. So the receipt was in the name of Udhoram and Sons. It was in the favor of Udhoram and Sons. Okay, this is clear. It was put in a railways and it was sent. Then meanwhile, what happens? The goods are stolen during the transit. Now this person, Udhoram, he files a case and makes them liable. That these people have negligently behaved. I have to be compensated for the loss. During the trial in the court, it was found out. Very beautifully they have found out the facts. What has happened there is, the train left somewhere around 1:30 p.m. from first station, that is Howrah. Please excuse me for my pronunciation. First place at 1:30. And meanwhile it reaches a station called Chandanpur after about 2 hours. And meanwhile there is a stop from first station to the second for 5 minutes break. There is some station in between and the train is stopped. And during that time, the goods are stolen. It is found out in the court. Well, all the things have been cleared. Everything is cleared. Now, the railway authorities, they have given up a guardian for that also. There is a police protection, everything for the goods. They say that everything is given. We don't have any problem. I mean, we are not creating any problem. Everything is given. Still, the goods were stolen from the first station to the next. Between that 2 hours time, it starts at 1:30 and after 2 hours it reaches another station. Between that, it has been stolen for some 5 to 15 minutes break. So what happens then? The case goes to now. Now we have to decide this person Udhoram. He is liable, but from whom he has to get it? Is it from railway authorities? It was held in the court that. By the very facts of the case, they said that they first gave the explanation that yes, the railway authorities are liable for this. How are they liabilities? Because they did not take due care. How did they not take due care? First one, they never gave the details, complete details about how many police were appointed at that time. Were they sufficient to take care of the goods? No, it was not sufficient. When the very documents which they submitted, it said that it was not sufficient. Though all the whatever the goods in the train were riveted and sealed. Riveted means basically it is locked and sealed, but still it was opened. So it was their negligent duty. How could they be negligent? They should have taken care that reasonable man would have taken of his own goods. They should have seen that. Meanwhile, how could, whenever there is a break, that particular police who were appointed, they had to take a care, right? Reasonable care, as if it is their own goods, which they are not. They have failed in duty. So, finally they were held liable, and this man, Udhoram and Sons, were compensated, and for whatever the losses he has incurred by losing the goods. Got it? The case is very interesting. Remember, this has stolen case in railways, railway stolen case. So the goods were stolen in the railways, though it was properly locked and sealed. The police were also there, and from the trial it was got to know that that there were inadequate staffs, that is inadequate police protection for the goods, and they have not exercised. They were very negligent and they have not exercised the care which an ordinary prudence man would have for his goods. Got it? Simple. Now we'll go to the next case, that is Calcutta Credit Corporation Limited versus Prince Peter, Greece. This is a garage case. This is also a quite very interesting case. What actually happened in this case is, the person has given a car to a garage for repairs and it is destroyed in fire. So now we'll just know what is the garage made up of. It is a pakka structure which has a wooden walls. It has got a wooden walls, and there is a partition of wooden. There is a partition made from wood. The one side it is for automobiles, and the other side it was used for cooking purpose. The other side where there is a garage, that is for automobiles, there were automobiles which uses petrol, right? There is a petrol, and there are other combustible items like paints and thinners. Sorry. So other side it is used for cooking purpose. When it is used for cooking purpose, there are gas or any other requirements which is easily combustible, which can catch fire very easily. So when this is there is a fire all of a sudden. And the garage was locked, and in order to find the key, they took 15 minutes. So the entire automobiles, everything, whatever the car, vehicles were there, it caught fire and it was destroyed in the fire. Now there was a case for compensation of losses. But this people, the garage people, they said that, no, we are not liable for this. They are the defendants, and they said that, no, we are not liable for this. What is the contention they took? They took the contention saying that we have taken the same care as a man of ordinary prudence would take. We have taken a reasonable care. We have seen that what best we could do, and we have taken a reasonable care. By just saying the facts, whatever facts I have said in brief, you can make out that they have not taken a reasonable care. There is a cooking going on in the adjacent premises. Only it is there is a partition wall which is made of wood. There are other combustible items like paints and thinners, along with the petroleum products. That is, the car has a petrol, right? The vehicle, whatever they use to drive has got a petrol, right? So there are combustible items, and for cooking, obviously they use combustible items which catches fire easily. And they also take the contention. First they say that they have taken a reasonable. Second, they say that no, the plaintiff can't file the case. He was aware of the fact that it is like this, and he was negligent. That there is a cooking going on and there is a garage here. He was very much aware of the fact, and please get the law of estoppel. That is, he cannot proceed against it because he was aware of the fact that there is that the place is not fit for giving his goods. So they take this contention. But the court says nothing, all the pleas are rejected and you are held liable. You should have taken a due care. From this, what we can infer is one important point. If the bailee takes a contention that if he pleads excuse, he say that, I have taken a reasonable care as I have taken for my goods. And if in case if his goods are also lost along with the bailor's goods, I had exercised reasonable care. He cannot take that contention. Even if his goods are lost along with the bailors, he cannot say that I have taken a reasonable care. He will be made liable. And point number 2 to be noted here is, along with that, he cannot say that, he cannot come to his say that for his defense that the bailor was aware how the place is. It is in very negligent manner. that this place is not fit for keeping his goods. He knows that, he is aware of that fact, still he has kept his goods. He cannot take that contention also. So he cannot take this to excuse, and he cannot claim defense. Got it? The first point, he cannot say that even my goods are lost, I have taken a reasonable care of the bailor's goods. Second one, that the place in which the goods are stored or kept are not better place or is not in good conditions, that the bailor was aware, still he has given it to me. He cannot ask for this contention, and he cannot seek excuse. He will be made liable. That is what you can infer from this case, Calcutta Credit Corporation versus Prince Peter of Greece. The next point is compensation. When does the liability of the bailee arises to pay compensation to the bailor? Got it? Simple. Now, under duties of bailee, we have to know when liability arises for the bailee, when he has to compensate for the bailor. This case is also very interesting. It is Alias versus E.M. Paul. In this case, you can better remember it as an accident case. What happens in this is garage accident. You can just remember it as garage accident. It is up to you. However you want, you can remember it. Have some code words so that it will be very easy for you to remember. So what happens in this case? When the person gives his vehicle to the garage for getting it repaired, he gives it and he leaves. And when there was the vehicle was in garage, the bailee, that is the person to whom now the vehicle is in possession with, is the bailee, right? The person who is repairing. He gives it to other person, some third person, for driving, and he does not have a driving license, when he does not know to drive also. He takes the vehicle, he meets with an accident with some other person. Now there is a case. Now what do you think? He is the bailor, that is the person who has given the vehicle to the garage for repairs. Is he liable in any ways? No. He has given it to the bailee for getting it repaired. But what has he done? He has given to someone else for driving, and he has met with an accident. Now, according to this case, the bailor won't be liable. Got it? I think you're clear from this explanation. So, the bailee has to compensate now. Now, since the bailor has to give compensation to victims, he has to give it. That is a different story altogether. Don't worry about it. Just remember this, that whatever the loss in case of accident has happened, for whatever the loss is incurred, it has to be compensated by whom? The bailee to the bailor. Got it? Simple. So these three cases are quite important when you are discussing section 151. When it comes to section 151, you find other cases also apart from this three what I have given. There are cases where there was a leak in a boat and it was carrying the Jew. So who is liable? There was a leak in the boat. So again, the bailee was made liable. He had to take a due care while carrying those goods. So again, he was made liable for this. The next other case you can see wherein the guest in a hotel room where the goods were stolen. The goods were stolen in the hotel room, which the hotel keeper was knowing it. So again, he becomes liable for whatever the goods were stolen. There are plenty of cases which you can come across. Again, a commission agent has got a silver and he keeps it in a unsafe place and it is lost. Silver is lost. So who becomes liable? Yes, the agent becomes liable. They are the bailee. On behalf of someone, he is getting that. So he becomes liable. So you can find lot of case laws and also cases regarding section 151 where he should act as a prudent man and how he becomes liable for compensation, and how his defense of taking that, he has taken the same care as that of his goods. Even if along with his goods is lost, when his goods is also lost, plus saying that the bailer was knowing that it was not in a safe place were all not accepted. So just remember these cases. You can also give it as an example, few other things, whatever I just told you, the jute thing in a boat, or the silver taken by a commission agent which is kept in an unsafe place, or a guest in a hotel, his goods are lost and the hotel keeper is aware, who becomes liable for all these things? The bailee becomes liable. His liability arises. He has to compensate for it. Now let's proceed further. The next is under section 152. It is given that the bailee is immune. They give a certain protection to the bailee and say that when he does not become liable. Now the question is when. There are certain case laws which you will come across and you get to know that when he is not liable. Section 152 says that unless a contrary agreement has been taken place, if he acts as a prudent man, whatever is given in section 151, and if he is taking a reasonable care, then he is not liable. That is, the bailee is not liable unless there is a contract which is contrary to this exists. He has to take a reasonable care as if he is taking off his own goods or at the similar circumstances of same bulk, same quantity and same value. He has to act as a prudent man. He has to keep it in a safe place. In case if the goods, after taking all these things, still if the goods is destroyed, damaged or deteriorated, he won't be liable. The bailee won't be liable. This is the definition. This is the meaning. What I am saying is given under section 152. Got it? Remember these three words. Damage. If there is any damage or defect or it is deteriorated, he is not liable. Bailee is not liable. Got it? So we got to know what is given under section 152 of Indian Contract Act. It is very simple. Now let's proceed further. So you got to know there are some conditions, right? Now let's see the case law. What happens in this case law? Gopal Singh, Hira Singh versus PNB, Punjab National Bank. I remember it as a right case. What happens? There is some goods pledged in Punjab National Bank. When? In the year 1946. That is somewhere in Jahania, which belongs to the Pak territory, that is Pakistan's territory, after the partition. So in the year 1947, there was partition and people who wanted to go to Pak and India, that all was segregated, everything was done. So that area, the bank, that particular branch where the goods were pledged went to Pakistan. And you know what happened there? That there was some rights taking place. Meanwhile, this person, the plaintiff, he gets a action against the bank, saying that he has to recover worth rupees 2 lakh. Whatever goods he has pledged is worth 2 lakh, and also the interest from the bank. It is his right and he has to recover it. Now the case went to the court. The court said, when it went before the court, this bank came and said, they came forward and took the contention that, see, we have no problem in returning, but all the goods during this riots, there was riots and during the partition, and what happened, all the goods that were pledged were plundered and destroyed. So they don't have any goods now. Now what did the court say? The court said that, fine, at this moment when the case was filed, there was a threat to life and and property. And also there was disturbance in law and machinery that was totally not in good condition. There was extraordinary breakdown of law and machinery at that time. So considering all this situation, the bank has lost the goods that were destroyed in riots. So you can't blame the bank now. You have to consider the situation also. They have exercised the due care, but this was not in their control. That is why the bank were not made liable in this case. Simple. Got it? I'll just give the gist of this case again. What happens in this case? The plaintiff has pledged his goods that was worth 2 lakh. He has pledged his goods at a place called Janania. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is wrong. Now after the partition, that particular place belonged to Pakistan. You can, if you can not even mention the name, you can just say the place belonged to Pakistan after the partition. And the plaintiff brought an action against the bank, saying that they have to give his pledged goods, which is a value of worth 2 lakh and plus interest for that. The bank took the contention that the goods were plundered and destroyed during the riots, during the partition. There were a lot of disturbance, right? So court held that very clearly. During the partition, there was a life or threatened property, and there was also extraordinary breakdown of law and machinery, and that is why at this extraordinary situation, it was not under the bank's control to really exercise some care. Got it? Fine. The obligation of the bank for this pledged goods doesn't arise. You got to know when they are not liable in this case, right? When there is some extraordinary situation which is not in the control arises, they are not liable. The second one is Union of India versus United India Fire etc. Insurance Company Limited. Now, what happens in this company? There were cotton bales which belonged to consignee. That person, consignee, what he does, he has a godown, but there was no sufficient place to store it. So he goes to the railway shed, railway goods shed, and there, outside the railway shed, he'll cover it with a tarpaulin, some sheet, and keeps it there, and he leaves. Then he does not come back. The railway authorities are there. Now, anyways, for the shed there is a police, so he leave it there and he'll go. Then the railway authorities inform him. See, even after 13 days has passed, he doesn't come back. They inform him, please collect it. It is outside, lying outside the shed. But he doesn't respond. He does not come and he does not take it. Then what happens after 13 days? One day it suddenly catches fire and the goods are destroyed. Now what happens? He files a case against the railways, saying that the consignee says that I have incurred loss, my cotton bales are lost in the fire due to fire accident. Now you have to compensate me. That is, railway authorities have to compensate. Now what was held by the court was, no, the railway authorities are not liable. They have taken a due care, right? They have taken the reasonable care. It was his duty, that is the consignee's duty, that he should have taken a precaution. He cannot just keep it out of the shed. Though there is police also, fine, guard, but still he has to take a due care, and the railway authorities, after catching the fire also, they have tried their best to extinguish the fire, but it was not possible since it was cotton bales. It was not possible, but they have taken due care, right? So they don't become liable. They don't become liable as a bailee. Fine? I think the case is clear. We'll proceed to the next case. The next case is about Bossack versus Mandelstam. This case is very interesting. Very interesting, in fact. It is all about jewelry. What happens? The plaintiff is in Lahore and he is a jeweler and he repairs the jewels. The defendants, they are a firm of jewelers. They have a jewelry shop. They are a firm of jewelers. So what they do is, if there is any repairs for a jewelry needed to be done, they send it to the plaintiff, who is a jeweler in Lahore. How do they send it? They send it through a post, and that post is uninsured. What happens finally? They're doing this business for many days. The defendants, that is a firm of jewelers, if there is any repair need to be done for a jewelry, they send it through a VPP, that is through a post only, that was uninsured, to the plaintiff, and plaintiff, after repairing, again he used to send the same way uninsured. What was the amount to be paid was to be given to the plaintiff was the cost which is incurred for repairing the jewels. What happened once this business was going on in regular course? What happened once? This plaintiff, they sent a post to the plaintiff, and they say to the post office at Lahore, and they say that they do inform him that plaintiff, your post has come, please come to collect it. But this plaintiff, he says that I don't want this parcel right now, whatever they have sent. You keep it for a while, and when I send for it, you send it to me. He tells this to the post office at Lahore. Then the parcel is lost now. Now this plaintiff, files a case against the defendant saying that they have sent it negligently. They have not taken a reasonable care. Now what was held by the court is very interesting. The court says that even you can make out that the defendants are no way liable, right? Okay, whatever. Now let's see what the court said. The court says that no, the defendants are not liable. They are not acting as a bailee. Why do you make them liable? This was a regular course of business which was taking place. Even the plaintiff has agreed for this, and defendant have mutually agreed, and they're saying that sending that uninsured post, right? So it is in the regular course of business, and no way the defendants have acted negligently. Got it? The same way, regular course which have been mutually agreed by both the parties have taken place. So the defendants were not liable for this. Got it? Bossack versus Mandelstam. You can remember it as a jewelry case. Very interesting. The next case is Sundarlal versus Ramsparu. This case is very simple. What happens? A person has given a shop for hire. It is a wooden shop. That shop is a wooden shop. He gives it in hire, and he says that when you are giving back to me, the owner says that when you are giving back to me, it should be in the same condition what I have given it to you now. That was the condition, that was the agreement which they enter into. And suddenly there is a communal rights again. Right. Here also rights, here also rights. And the shop is destroyed, or it is damaged. To a certain extent, the things were destroyed and it's damaged now. Now, can you make the shop person who has rented the shop liable for this? No. How is he liable? It was not in his hands to exercise a due care. See, whenever that communal rights were unexpected, and it was not in his hands to take care of it. he could not exercise anything at that time. So, any care at that time. So, he was not held liable. Clear with this case? A very simple wooden shop case. There are other cases also pertaining to hire of lockers. The case is Anil Mehra versus Bank of Maharashtra. You can even write it. Here the judgment was very important in case of hire of locker. I have discussed this earlier also. What happens in a hire of when the locker is hired? You don't know what is there in locker. The bank people don't know what is there in the locker. They just operate it along with the customer, that's it. But they don't know what if the locker is taken by the customer, they don't even know what is there in the locker. If there is anything or there is nothing in the locker, they are not aware of those things. They don't know what is the extent of valuables they're keeping, what is the quantum of the valuables, how much quantity, nothing. They're not aware of anything. So they do not have any sort of control over the locker. So you cannot make the bank as liable in case if there is loss or if the goods are stolen in the locker. Got it? This point is clear. I am repeating this point for the case of bailment. Do remember, hire of locker, you cannot make them as a bailee or bailer. The relationship does not exist at all. Why? Because they don't know what are the contents in the locker. I think you're clear with this explanation. And even in case of food grains that is stored, in case one more example I can give you is if the food grains are stored in a godown, in anybody else godown. Suppose we'll take an example for this. A gives his goods to B to store it in his godown, B's godown. He says fine, and he has taken a due care and all. But there is a flood, unprecedented flood. Suddenly flood. Heavy rainfall, flood. Now do you think B is liable for this? He has become liable because he has exercised a due care, but nobody expected that there can be an unprecedented flood. So it doesn't become liable to be compensated. I think you are clear from this. The first duty, that is duty to take reasonable care. You remember section 151, which says that he should act as a man of ordinary prudence under similar circumstances that he takes for his goods for the same bulk value. Got it? That particular, whatever the care is taking, same care has to be taken. Your section 151 says, whereas in your section 152 gives an immunity for the bailee. It says that if he has taken a reasonable care and the goods are destroyed, damaged or deteriorated, he won't be liable. And these are few of the case laws which says that when the bailee doesn't become liable.